The web stretched farther than any man could walk in a day. It began in the hollowed out husk of the old abbey, its stone arches now strung thick with glistening silk, and spread outward across the dead fields, through the skeletal remains of the village, up into the black pines, where the last birds had long since fallen silent. The villagers called it the Pale Curtain. None who entered ever returned, until tonight.
The offering?
Marek was the third son, the expendable one. His father had bound his wrists himself, the rope biting deep enough to draw blood. The scent would call the Spider King. That was how it worked. That was how it had always worked. The boy stumbled through the silver-strung trees, every breath coming in ragged gasps. Around him, the forest whispered, not with wind, but with the dry rustle of countless legs moving in perfect unison. Shadows pulled unnaturally between the trunks, too thick, too organized, then silence. The webs ahead parted like a theatre curtain, revealing the clearing and the throne. The monarch revealed. It was not a spider, not entirely. The thing that waited atop its nest of bones wore the tattered remains of a king's robes, the gold thread still gleaming beneath layers of dried viscera. Its torso was vaguely human, if human flesh could stretch so thin over jutting ribs. But below the waist, it became nightmare bulbous, pulsating abdomen, from which 8 segmented legs extended, each ending in a barbed point sharper than any dagger. Its face was worst of all. A grotesque fusion of man and arachnid, its 2 wide mouths split vertically, revealing rows of needle teeth. Where eyes should have been, 8 black orbs reflected Marek's terror back at him 1,000 times over.
The dance of fangs.
The Spider King moved with eerie grace, descending from its throne on a thread of silk thicker than Marek's arm. The boy tried to run, but the webs caught him, sticky tendrils winding around his ankles, his wrists, his throat. The first bite came at the junction of his shoulder, those needle teeth sinking deep. Marek's scream was cut short as venom flooded his veins, paralyzing him instantly. He could only watch as the Spider King's mandibles flexed, as a thin, hooked appendage emerged from its mouth and pressed against his sternum. Then Dash pierced. The pain was beyond anything Marek had imagined. The Spider King fed slowly, savoring each sip of marrow, each spurt of cardiac blood. By the time it reached his abdomen, the boy was still alive, still aware, his vocal cords long since torn from screaming. The transformation. But the Spider King was not done with him. As Marek's vision faded to black, he felt something worse than teeth, the prick of an ovipositor at the base of his skull. The eggs pulsed into his brain cavity, warm and alive, their tiny legs already twitching against his grey matter. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was his own hand twitching unnaturally, fingers curling like a spider, testing its new limbs.
The nest grows.
Dawn found the clearing changed. A new cocoon hung among hundreds of others, its silken casing still damp with fluids. Inside, Marek's body had already begun to alter, his ribs splitting outward to form the beginnings of a chitinous cage, his jaw unhinging to accommodate new mouthparts. The eggs in his skull hatched in unison, their spiderlings feeding on what remained of his mind even as they rewired his nervous system. Beyond the clearing, the webs trembled. The village elders had gathered at the tree line, their torches flickering weakly against the unnatural dark. They had come to see if their offering had been accepted. It had, but not in the way they hoped.
The reckoning.
The cocoon split with a wet tear. What emerged was neither Marek nor spider, but something in between, its limbs too long, its movements too fluid, its 8 new eyes reflecting the torchlight in perfect unison. The elders barely had time to scream before it was upon them, moving with its father's terrible grace. The Spider King watched from its throne as its newest child fed. Soon, very soon, the pale curtain would stretch farther. and the forest would have not just a prince, but an army.